Welcome to Healing the Spirit, a space where we awaken our creativity, deepen our connections, and remember who we are through the lens of astrology, archetypes, and art making. I'm your host, Jonathan Coe. Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me. And before we get to today's episode, I want to share an exciting announcement. So tomorrow, on Tuesday, March 14, 2023, at 8 p.m. Eastern, I will be sharing a live guided meditation over Zoom. And you are all invited. It will be free of charge. It's essentially my birthday gift for all of you who feel like this will be supportive for you, who feel resonant with this particular offering. So the offering itself is titled Dissolving Into You. And essentially what it is that I'll be sharing an energy practice through meditation. And I have found that energetic practices are the most helpful and the most gentle when I'm moving through some big shifts in my life, because they really help me kind of come back to my own body, to my own system, and release what is not mine. So the reason why I want to share this at this particular moment is because, one, March is a very transitional moment for a lot of us astrologically. If you have been listening to this podcast, you know what I'm talking about, but a lot of these astrological changes may be quite significant, and you may have already felt that. And if not, if the changes are more subtle, they may be felt over time. And so I want to really support all of us through this process. And the second reason why I think this is interesting to share is because change is always hard, right? Moving through change is emotionally and energetically very taxing. And I think one of the reasons why this is because part of our survival mechanism as humans is to hold on to things, right? Is to resist the change because we want to stay the same, because what feels the same feels safe. And yet, even through science, we know that we are always changing. We know that our brains, right, are always changing. Our cells are always dying and regenerating. Our minds, right, our thoughts are always changing. Like, I am not the same person tonight as I'm recording this as I was in the morning, because I've been exposed to different events that change my perceptual filter, right? So change is always happening. If you look around, change is happening all the time around you. You know, people around you are always changing, situations are always changing, and yet it feels so hard because we have been conditioned to hang on, right? And a lot of it is beyond just social conditioning. It is also on a deep cellular level. So I found energetic practices to be so gentle, so supportive through moving me through changes. And I really, really want to share this with all of you. So if this feels exciting to you, if this feels like it will be supportive, please sign up through the link in the show notes. And note that there will be no recording. I will not be sharing the recording with anybody who joins or did not join live. So only sign up if you can actually make it live. And if you can't commit to making it live, my ask is for you to kindly not join and make space for those who are interested and who can make it live, because my Zoom account has a limit of 100 people. Okay, I think that's it. Let me know if you have any questions, and otherwise we will just get to this week's contemplation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Healing the Spirit, and welcome to this week's episode. So, today I am going to be sharing some contemplations for the coming week, and this is for the week of March 13th, 2023. And as always, my invitation is for you to really feel into the sensations that are coming up within you, the intuitive knowledge and knowing that bursts forth when I am sharing these contemplations, because my intention really is to assist you in sort of coming up with your own ideas about what may be relevant for you in the coming week. All right, so let's get into this. This is a pretty active week, astrologically speaking. So let me give you a little bit of a rundown of the astrology of the coming week. On March 14th, Mars in Gemini will be squaring Neptune in Pisces. On Wednesday, the 15th, Sun in Pisces will conjoin Neptune. On Thursday, Mercury will conjoin Neptune, and then Sun will be squaring Mars, and then Venus in Aries will be squaring Pluto in Capricorn, and then Venus will be entering Taurus. So Thursday is a very astrologically active day. And then on Friday, Mercury in Pisces is going to be creating an exact square with Mars in Gemini. And then Mercury is also going to conjoin the Sun, which creates a Mercury cazimi, is the technical term. And then Venus in Taurus will be sextiling Saturn in Pisces. On Saturday, Mercury in Pisces will be sextiling Pluto in Capricorn. On Sunday, Mercury will be entering Aries. So as you can see, this is a very astrologically active week, right? And when I was tuning in, the first thing that I heard was to keep calm and carry on, which I think is such a beautiful message for this coming week. And here's a question that I will share with all of us to contemplate. Where can I practice a healthy dose of detachment and surrender? Where am I noticing illusions of urgency and perfectionism? So the message that I want to share for this coming week is maybe a little bit more spicy than usual. I'm not sure how this is going to land on you, but it feels kind of spicy when I tune into it, because I also was really getting this message that the week that's ahead of us is the week to really avoid drama, both internal and external. The real question to ask here is that whenever you find yourself maybe in a little bit of a pickle, in an argument, or in a sticky situation, just ask if there's an easy way out of the situation. And the encouragement is to try to take that easy way, right? Pisces is a mutable sign. Pisces is the fish, right? The fish that's able to move between different waters, the fish that's able to shift almost, shift gears from one way of swimming to another way of swimming, right? It's about the ability to slip away unnoticed. And yet, with the fact that there are so many aspects going on astrologically, drama may really be the name of the game during the coming week, right? You might find yourself encountering a lot of situations or having situations come to your door that really feel unavoidable, right? To some parts of you, it just feels like, but there's no way out of this, right? But I think the trick here is to recognize that some of this, at least some of these situations, may not even be a real thing, right? That in a couple weeks, in a month, in a few days, they may prove to actually be smokes and mirrors. And so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this word drama, because I think the word drama can really bring up so much stuff, right? It's a very polarizing word. There can be so much judgment towards ourselves and towards others that come up when we think about this word. There's so much weirdness, right, around the word drama. It's so often used in our culture, I think, from my observation, to dismiss a person's concern, which often is very, very valid, right? You hear the word drama used in the context of, oh, that person is such a drama queen, right? Or to gaslight someone. And there's also a fair bit of misogyny in there too, right? Because often the word drama is associated with maybe, forces or humans that we think of as feminine, and there's like a very, very subtle or not so subtle undertone of like, there's, this person is being hysteric, right? So I usually really like to avoid words like these. To me, they almost bring up more baggage than is worth talking about. But when I checked in with my guides around the messages for this week, it is really clear to me that this is the word that I'm invited to work with this week in my own life, and that I'm invited to offer up for you as a point of contemplation for this coming week. So let's just dive right in, right? First of all, let's define what kind of drama I'm even talking about, because I think, again, that is a loaded word. And so there can be many different types of drama, right? To me, it's quite simply about the confluence of a couple energetic patterns. So pattern number one is drama, to me, often happens when we're putting in more energy than is absolutely necessary in order to get from point A to point B, right? With drama, there's a sense of amplification. There's a sense of access of some sort, right? So, for example, when I think about operas, like operas are really dramatic, right? Or musicals, they're really dramatic because instead of just saying, hey, please pick up the phone, the mother figure would start to launch into this whole number, right? Musical number about the phone ringing and then like dancing around the house, right? Even like in the most positive sense of that word drama, this is what comes up, right? Something that's really simple is turned into a whole damn ritual, right? And then another thing that I think is also present in the kind of drama that I'm talking about is that so this is where maybe it differs a little bit, right, from the example I just shared. That to me, the kind of drama to avoid this coming week is one that's often accompanied by a sense of powerlessness or urgency, right? Usually it sounds like one of the following. Unless I do this, the thing that I want will never happen. Or, if I wait a little bit until I get to the other side of whatever emotion or whatever sensation I'm experiencing, I'll miss out, right? Or I'll do the wrong thing. I'll be a bad person. So there's kind of a sense of maybe lack of perspective is what I'm trying to share here, right? That in those moments when these kinds of dramas are really amplified and created from a sense of not being able to see multiple perspectives at once, right? Which again, there's no value judgment here, right? This is neither wrong nor right, good nor bad. It just is, right? But one way to see drama, and this is not true for all situations, but it is true for many situations, is that it can be rooted in some sort of thought pattern, right? That there's some sort of loop going on in our heads, right? In the stories that we tell ourselves. We, or maybe our ego, has been habituated, right, to not only see and notice a particular problem, but to also experience this activation, right, of extra fear that unless we address the problem at this very moment, right, unless we dive head on into the problem, it will fester or it will become something much worse, right? So I think it's also important to feel into what drama isn't, right? Drama is not the same as acknowledging that a problem exists, right? You can acknowledge that a problem exists and then say, feel into yourself and notice, oh, maybe I'm not really in a space where I can tackle the problem head on, right? And so I can acknowledge the problem and I can kind of put it to the side, right? Be like, I will return to this when I have a little bit more space, energetically, psychically, emotionally, right? When I'm not feeling so charged about this thing. Drama can be about trying to solve a problem, right? But then because we're so insistent on solving the problem now, ends up like amplifying the problem in some ways, right? More than is what is, necessary, right? So, one possibility when we are tangled up in drama is kind of a sense of righteousness, right? A sense of needing to be right about something, a sense of needing to justify our thoughts and our actions, right? Under a different sky, under a different astrology, I may be prescribing for you to really start kind of doing your due diligence, right? Having hard conversations, not looking away from the challenging stuff. Very rarely do you hear advice, around like, just find the easy way out, right? But I think with this particular sky, this is really what's available to us, and this may even be a temporary solution, right? We may have to return to the thing that is kind of the source of the quote unquote problem at a later time. But let me give an example, a slightly more neutral example to illustrate my point here, right? So this may be more relatable for those of you who have a day job, but most of us listening to this podcast probably have some sort of job, right? And so this probably will resonate with you on some level. Sometimes you're really, really busy, right? But then you kind of look ahead in your calendar, and maybe this is coming from my own personal experience. You see that in a couple of days, you're actually going on a vacation, right? You already decided ahead of time that you were going to take some time off. And then you find yourself having two options here, right? You can really continue to crank it up and whip yourself into a frenzy, right? You look at your to-do list and there's like an endless amount of items on your to-do list. And so you have the option of like continuing down that path, really pushing yourself before you, to basically pressure yourself to finish everything before you go on a break, right? And then the other option you have is just to kind of let it go, right? Do what you can, and then let whatever you can't seem to get to wait until you're back from this time away that you have scheduled for yourself, right? In the heat of the moment, when you're really so driven by the need to get things done, you may find yourself going really hard on yourself, right? Getting really pissed, getting really disappointed when you can't complete all the tasks that are on your list. But then you're forced to have a hard stop, right? Regardless of whether you choose option A or option B, you're already going. Maybe you already bought tickets, or maybe you already made plans, right? So you decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to step away anyway. I'll deal with the mess when I came back. And then when you actually come back, you might look at this pile of stuff that you haven't done. And then, because you're refreshed, because you've had a chance to kind of look away, right? Have a change of scenery, have a little bit of extra detachment, you might find yourself saying, wow, I really whipped myself into a frenzy there, didn't I? And then maybe you review the pile of things that you had to do, and out of the 8 things that you thought you really needed to complete, you were able to maybe streamline that list into only 2 or 3 items, right, that are absolutely essential. So sometimes we really need to stay with hard situations. Sometimes we really need to confront the conflicts, right, that are bubbling forth in our lives, in all sorts of areas in our lives. Other times, it may actually be wiser and maybe even more productive for us to take a step back and distract ourselves intentionally for a little bit, right? Not because the problem itself is not real, not because we're bypassing anything, but because there's a tipping point, right? At which we start to get a little counterproductive, and spending more time, spending more energy on the problem isn't actually going to help us move along, right? And this is interesting because I see this a lot in myself and in, people that are close to me, even in the emotional realm, right? Sometimes we feel, I really need to get to the bottom of whatever it is that I'm feeling. But maybe when you are so activated, when there's such a charge around whatever it is that is moving through you and happening in your life, maybe this is actually not the best time, right, to be looking at the thing. Maybe you just need to put your hands up in the air, let it go, and then come back at another time, right? Our judgment can be quite clouded in these moments, right? Maybe we simply don't have all of the necessary information. Maybe we need to more gently process what's going on internally and externally in order for us to come to a grounded assessment of the situation. So let's talk about this a little bit deeper, right? Let's talk about more maybe the other side of the coin, which is, what is the point of finding the easy way out? What is the point of avoiding drama as much as we can? I think in 90% of the situation, we always have a choice to simply kind of take the Piscean approach, right? Almost avoiding the problems by swimming away. And taken to an extreme, this approach can be really not super healthy, right? It can borderline, it can become borderline escapist, right? And in the long run, I think that continuing to, in fact, I know as a Pisces sun myself, that continuing to run away from problems can be really, really unhelpful, right? And it can really backfire. But I think the real heart of the question for this coming week is, if you didn't engage in that drama, right? If you didn't force yourself to try to solve a particular situation at that very moment, what is available for you instead? What can you create instead, right? We'll talk a little bit more about creativity in a second, but I think this is a really important thing to consider that I just kind of want to seed here. So let's take a little bit of detour into one possible alternative to engaging in what I've been defining as drama, right? Or getting dragged into situations that are maybe more inflamed than they really need to be. Astrologically, Venus entering Taurus to me is really a perfect reminder to smell the roses, right? The rest of March will introduce some really major astrological and hence energetic shifts, right? So it feels really important to pace ourselves here, to not really fry our nervous system, to not overextend ourselves, right? Venus in Taurus is at home, right? Or in domicile, we call it, using the language of ancient astrology. And what does this mean, right? To me, when planets are in the signs where they're at home, they really are very resourced, right? They're at home. They have all their tools, they have all the conditions necessary for them to really do the thing that they like to do the most, right? Venus in Taurus to me is about returning to bodily pleasures. The first thing that came to my mind, especially with all of this Pisces situations, with all of this activation between Pisces and Mars and Gemini, right, is that, are you getting enough sleep? How is the quality of your sleep? Are you getting enough nourishing food into your body? Are you getting enough movement, right, that feels delicious for your joints? The other day, I heard one of my teachers, Melissa Tiers, talking about sleep and talking about taking care of the body in a way that really truly blew my mind, right? So another fellow student in the class was asking how she can make time to exercise, to care for her body, especially because this particular person has a tendency to go hard with the career, work, vocation related goals, right? And has no trouble completing or achieving these goals, but seems to have a really hard time getting themselves out of quote unquote work mode, right? And into really caring for themselves. And what Melissa said really opened my mind, which is that why don't you try to see sleep, food intake, body movements as part of your work too, right? Especially for those of us whose work requires a lot of presence and requires us to really show up in our authentic selves. Taking care of ourselves are really such an important part of doing the work, right? Because we need to bring ourselves into the work. And so we can't just push a couple buttons and be done, right? And so, this really blew my mind because, of course, when we're not sleeping well, we're not getting the proper nourishment, nutrition, right? When we're not getting enough movements, we're not getting enough sunlight, it ends up taking so much more energy to bring our work into fruition, right? To bring our whole selves into the equation. So here's my recommendation for this coming week. Consciously tell your brain to focus on the things that are giving you simple, easeful pleasures in life, right? What feels so easy that you almost missed it? As an example, maybe you find yourself tending to different situations that seems like a lot of crisis. Maybe someone at work, right, is constantly bringing all these issues to you, right? You are constantly in troubleshooting mode. Maybe you have, crisis with somebody who is a distant family member, right? And sometimes when we are in these moments, right, we can get so stuck in like this tunnel vision of like trying to basically bring buckets of water to like put out the fire that we no longer remember that there are people around us, relationships around us that are here to support us, right? I'm not saying stop helping people. Many of us who identify as sensitives, as healers, as thoughtful humans, we're naturally attuned to the problems of the world, right? And we feel good about contributing to help make some changes, right? Or help people feel seen. I don't want to take that away from you, but also notice what it is taking away from you. Maybe you're so busy trying to help, a coworker in need, right? Or a friend who is dealing with something that is uncomfortable for them, right? That you're no longer enjoying the simple moments where your partner is making a really simple but delicious meal for you, right? Maybe you're more prone to responding to the crises, the spirals in your life, rather than saying, you know what, enough spirals for today, enough drama. I'm going to start consciously moving towards the things that feel simple, that feels easeful, that feels sweet, mutual, and nourishing, right? Because I think it's really interesting. This is just part of the way that the brain works, right? We have really evolved to see problems. We have evolved as human beings to see the ways that things are not moving in the way that we want it to move, right? And so it feels so easy to focus on the problems and how to solve the problems. But my invitation is for you to not just focus on the problems, but also focus on your resources, right? Where can you just feel good? Where can you just be, right? Contemplate on that. Experiment, right? What will it look like if you give yourself a little bit of extra space during the day to really do the things that make you happy, things that are simple? For me, it's like watering my plants, right? Literally, very simple. Taking an extra shower also feels amazing. Singing 1 or 2 songs, right? Texting a friend that I haven't talked to in a while that I know will have like a nice, easeful connection with, right? I also want to talk about something that will make me look so basic. So I've been reading Rick Rubin's The Creative Act, which I know everybody has a copy right now, but I'm actually a fan. So one of the things that Rick Rubin was talking about in his book is the idea of awareness. And I really appreciate his exposition or his explanation of what awareness is, because he was contrasting awareness with other concepts such as agenda and then also studying or analysis, right? And he was talking about how, becoming aware of our environment is about recognizing the program that's happening around us, right? Rather than choosing our inner agenda and then developing a strategy based on that agenda. And I think this is often, for a lot of us who are wanting to create a life that feels conscious or wanting to create like a reality that feels exciting to us, oftentimes we move from this space of really identifying our inner agenda, right? Our wishes or our dreams or our intentions, and then moving it outward into the space of like, how can I make this a reality? And I think that's really beautiful. But also, cultivating awareness is about just noticing, right? It's not a state that you force, according to Rick Rubin, but rather a state that you actively allow to happen. And I think this is so beautiful, right? It's about being present with, accepting of what's happening, at least as a first step, right? Can you take the time to just be aware that something is happening, And then he was also talking about the difference between awareness and studying or analysis. And in the book, he said awareness is that first moment of pure connection, right? Is that first moment of like just really letting your whole being experience it. And I think it's interesting to consider what we can do to kind of expand that moment of living the experience, right? And then giving yourself permission to really only attempt to study it or to understand it later. And again, this doesn't mean that your thinking or your analysis faculty doesn't have a function, right? It's so beautiful. It's literally what's kept you alive. It's literally what's kept your ancestors alive for this long to make your existence possible, right? And yet, when we are stuck in that way of being, when we are always in our agenda and we're always studying or analyzing, we forget that we can also just be. We can just be aware, and we can even expand that moment of awareness a little bit longer so that whatever comes our way becomes a whole world of sensations rather than this constant problem-solving machine that sometimes our brains can be, right? And I'm really including myself in that equation, by the way, because I'm also someone who really loves to think about things, to analyze things, to go out there and make things happen, right? So the other questions that I would like to offer up for contemplation for this coming week is around the point of avoiding drama, right? Which is this idea of creativity. So the questions are, where can I use my imagination to fortify my energetic boundaries? Where can I use my creativity to enact a natural buffer between myself and everyone else around me? So these are really such potent questions, I think. And I really want to kind of just leave you with these two questions because I want you to actually ruminate about this. I feel like whatever I say about it is probably not going to be as powerful as your own reflections around this, right? And whatever feelings may come up around the idea of imagination, the idea of energetic boundaries, the idea of creativity, and specifically creativity as a natural buffer, right, between you and the world. And something I want to say here is that often when we think about the idea of having boundaries and the idea of having a buffer between us and the rest of the world, a lot can really come up, right? The sense of like, oh, I'm being really selfish, for wanting to have a little bit of extra space from other people. But time and time again in my own practice, as someone who works with energy, as someone who works with astrology, often it's really interesting that when we merge with someone or something or a particular situation is so often when we lose perspective and when we're not able to bring in, right, the authentic music, the authentic energy, frequency that we are really supposed to be bringing into the situation that can really help expand and lubricate and shift the situation in some way, right? That, it's kind of making me think about recently in some conversations I've been having with friends, this idea of the trickster comes in, right? And the trickster to me is not just a human person. It's not a conscious role, of like, oh, I want to be a trickster. But I think it's interesting to be thinking about trickster as an energy, right? This was something that I've heard Bayo Komolafe saying, which is that trickster is flow, right? Trickster is a wave function. And so trickster is like an animating force that moves through situations to shift the direction of a particular narrative, right? Or to shift a certain dynamic between different characters. And so I have been really feeling into how, with all of this Piscean energy, what's available to us is to tap into our imagination, to kind of give a little bit of extra space, right, between us and the rest of the world. And the reason why this is important is because I think so often, especially as an artist myself, as a creative person, I've seen that when I'm merged, right, with the world, when I'm merged with the people that I'm supposed to be helping or the people who are supposed to enjoy my work, I am no longer able to provide a vantage point. I'm kind of totally with them, but a little bit stuck in there, right? And so I'm no longer able to really fully hear the ways that inspiration wants to move through me, the way that divine energy or the cosmos or even the earth, right, is wanting to express itself through me and the gifts that I have and the perspectives that are unique to me. And so when I am dragged into situations where I maybe create an internal or external drama, right? Often there's also a lot of material for creative pursuits. Often I'm just not aware of it, right? And the only thing that's really between me and my awareness of how I can use all this material to turn it into some sort of creative expression is me being energetically merged with the thing, right? Because drama, especially external drama, to me, when we are able to kind of play with having different distance, right? Or at least being able to put ourselves at various distance to that drama is actually material, material for a poem, right? Or a song, or a piece of writing, or wisdom that's wanting to come through you to become a meme on Instagram. I don't know, right? Whatever your creative expression is, you are always a creative being, even if the only thing you create, and I don't mean this lightly, right? Even if the only thing you create is your own dinner, but that act of creating one's dinner, or creating a ritual in your bath, right? Like that is your birthright as a human being, right? You have a right to really access these very heightened creative states. And so purely energetically, we can think of this maybe as an equation, right? If I have the energy to amplify or to obsess over something and to turn it into more than what it is, right? To turn it into something dramatic, then I can also use that same energy in its pure form and direct it towards something that I will be excited about creating, right? Even if you don't think of yourself as traditionally or conventionally a creative person, you still have your journal, right? You can still take a walk and take photos on your phone. You can still go to the gym, right? Art to me is whatever makes us feel alive and able to access that deep sense of channeling creator energy, which is external to us, but also that we have potential to mirror within ourselves, right? So what if you just give yourself the permission to really clear out your resistance towards fully claiming your creative power and agency this coming week, right? What if you let yourself turn that excess energy, some of the excess friction that is available for us this coming week, some of this busy contact points between these planetary energies, to turn into something beautiful, right? To turn into something that you will look at with some level of wonder, like, wow, I did that, right? And even to approach this lightly, not even think about this as, oh, I'm going to make my next masterpiece, right? But just to let it flow through you and judge later, right? Just really being in touch with that creative process. So yeah, that's it by way of contemplations. I hope that this is giving you something to think about, something to ruminate in the coming week. I hope that you have a massively creative week. We have so much going on in March, and honestly, this astrology really excites me. I think there's a lot of potential and opportunity for really creative shifts, really exciting turn for us to be enjoying. The wave is turning, right? Let's play with it. So a couple mini announcements is that, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I will be hosting a live guided meditation tomorrow, Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. And so if you are available at 8 p.m., feel free to join all of us. As I mentioned before, the links will be in the show notes below. And yeah, I would love to see you there. It's completely free of charge. Please only sign up if you can actually make it, because my Zoom has a limit and we want to make space for everybody who would like to come. And then the other thing that I will mention too is that if you have been enjoying this podcast, if you've been enjoying these contemplations or any of the interviews that I've been sharing, I would really, really love it if you could leave a review. This is a humble and sincere request from my part, because these reviews, these ratings on your podcast app really, really helps me in getting this work out there, and really helps in finding people that will also resonate with this work, that will benefit from this work. Okay, so that is it from me for the coming week. I am so grateful that you've spent this time with me. Thank you for contemplating the week with me. Thank you for trusting me to share this information with you. And I hope that you have a beautiful week. I'm sending you so much love, and thank you so much for listening.